on migrants, for benefits, guarantees for the single treaty. Your demands have reduced so much. This is like shadowboxing, isn't it?
No, we are focused on what is in Britain's national interest, and we want the best of both worlds. We want to be in the European Union, but we don't want to have the costs and burdens of the Eurozone imposed on us. We want to be able to benefit from free movement of people, but we don't want people coming here to Britain just to claim our benefits. We want to cooperate with other member states, but we want our House of Commons elected by the British people to have a key role. And we want Europe to be a source of jobs and growth for our country. So I think we're focused on the essentials for Britain's national interest.
But in terms of what you're actually asking for now, it's much less ambitious than the Prime Minister spelled out in 2013.
No, I think this is absolutely consistent with what David Cameron spelt out when he announced the referendum. It's absolutely consistent with the manifesto we put to the British people earlier this year and upon which we were elected. We said, we are going to go and get the best deal for Britain. And let's be clear, this is about people's jobs and people's wallets. It's about making sure jobs don't leave Britain because we're not in the euro. It's about making sure the costs of the euro aren't imposed on British taxpayers. And it's about writing that into the law of the land. I think we can do that. And I think that will be absolutely crucial, that deal, to the outcome of the referendum. And we can get the best of both worlds.
You sound confident then that you are going to get this, but you're also trying to sound tough. But the reality is, you know what you're going to get. You know what's feasible already, don't you?
Well, we're in a negotiation with partners like Germany. Here we are in a Siemens factory. This company employs close to 20,000 people in Britain and in its supply chain. The fan blades on these big turbines are made in Birmingham. So we are not, this is not a conversation with enemies. This is a conversation with some of our closest partners in the world. And what we're trying to do is get a deal that works for everyone. We want a stronger Eurozone, but we also want to make sure the voice of the pound is heard. We want to make sure the euro works because we pay the price when it doesn't. But at the same time, we don't want the costs and burdens of the euro imposed on us. So getting that deal, getting the best of both worlds, I think is absolutely what the British people want to see.
But how can you expect countries in the eurozone to put the interests of the pound ahead of their own?
Well, I think the deal to be done with countries like Germany or indeed France is this. We'll help you make the euro work better for you and for us, because we suffer when the euro doesn't work. In return, you make sure that Britain's interests are properly respected, that we don't bear the costs and burdens of things that go wrong in the euro, that jobs aren't lost from Britain because we're not in the euro. That's the deal on the table, and I think it works for all the countries involved. We're not trying to do a deal that disadvantages anyone. We want to make the European Union stronger for everyone, including for Britain.
But in basic fairness, 27 countries versus one country on the other side, how can you expect the Eurozone to give you a legal guarantee that they won't agree things amongst themselves?
Well, what we're looking for with the Eurozone is essentially a deal. They can go ahead and make their euro stronger. Now, they'll potentially need Britain's consent for that. In return, they agree that we're protected so that we don't have costs and burdens imposed on us when, for example, they have to bail out Greece, that we don't have businesses being forced to move from Britain because they're told they can't be in a country that doesn't have the euro, and the voice of Britain is heard around the table. So I think that's the outlines of the deal. I think that's what the Eurozone want as well. They want this arrangement to work. And look, in the end, this is about people's jobs and their prosperity and the money in their pockets. And if you take the countries, Britain and Germany, we've contributed 2/3 of all the growth in Europe. We've together created 3 million jobs, whereas other countries have seen jobs being lost. So I think Britain and Germany have a really strong partnership, and we both have a huge interest in making the European Union work better.
A German government source said to me, George Osborne needs to have his crusade. We're happy to play along. This is a game, isn't it?
I don't think this is at all a game, as you put it. Let's be clear. Some people in Britain want to leave the European Union regardless, and some people want to stay in regardless. I think the majority are looking at this negotiation, and if we don't get a deal, they'll question whether the EU works for Britain or ever can work for Britain. If we do get a deal, I think people can see we can have the best of both worlds. So this deal is going to be absolutely crucial to the outcome of the referendum.
Can you personally really imagine in your heart of hearts standing on a platform calling for the UK to leave the EU?
Well, we don't rule anything out, as you know.
Can you personally imagine that?
You know, what I want to do is succeed in what we've been tasked with the British people, which is getting a better deal. That's why I'm here in Germany, talking to the top German politicians and speaking to German industry.
So
because
clear, it sounds like you're quite queasy about the prospect of actually campaigning to leave.
Well, as I say, I don't rule anything out, but I go into something wanting to get the best for Britain. I'm an optimist, and you know, in all the conversations I've had here in Germany, they value Britain as a European partner. They can see that British manufactured goods are going into German turbines, that Germany and Britain are a great source of jobs and enterprise in Europe. So I'm not having a conversation with people who don't want to talk. I'm having a conversation with people who say, come on, let's sit around the table and work out the best thing for Britain, the best thing for Germany, the best thing for all the countries in Europe.
Much of what you're talking about would need a new EU treaty. Now, the chances of there being a new treaty before the British referendum are close to zero. So are you going to be asking voters to take on trust the changes that you get?
Well, we need to make sure that the changes we secure for Britain are legally binding, written into the law, and irreversible. How we deliver that is, I would suggest, you know, a second-order question. You know, what matters is getting the change that works for Britain and making sure it's permanent.
But if you want it written into law, that has to mean a treaty.
Well,
there won't be a treaty before the referendum, so you're asking voters to take it on trust.
But I think the British people are going to see the deal we produce. They will make a judgment, of course, in the referendum about whether it's a good deal for Britain. But I think if we do secure a good deal for Britain, we will actually be delivering what the British people, the majority of British people, want, which is for Britain to be in Europe but not run by Europe.
But will there have to be a new treaty in your view, yes or no?
Well, I do think that the changes we are seeking will require treaty change. Now, how that is delivered, when that is delivered, of course, is all subject to the negotiation.
Do you think you're really winning this argument? Just yesterday, one of your colleagues in the cabinet, Ian Duncan-Smith, said it looks like it's possible out will win the day. Are you really winning the argument?
Well, as I say, if you look at this referendum debate at the moment, I think we are seeing actually some shadow boxing. You've got people who definitely want to leave, people who definitely want to stay. But I think the majority of the British people are going to take a very hard-headed assessment of the deal that's on offer. If we don't get that deal, yes, I think people may well conclude, well, the European Union is never going to work for us. But if we do get that deal, we'll deliver what I think British people really want, which is to be in Europe, not run by Europe, the best of both worlds, and that will be crucial to the outcome of the referendum.
As someone who wants to stay in the European Union, are you comfortable with the political gamble that you and David Cameron have taken by holding a referendum at all?
Look, I don't think in a democracy you make progress by ducking the big issues. This is a huge issue for the British people. And you know, lots of countries in the world at the moment are standing on the sidelines and they don't want to confront the big issues. Britain's not like that. You know, we're getting stuck into the big issues of our day. And in the end, this is about Britain's jobs and prosperity and the livelihoods of British people. And for me, you know, I wouldn't be doing my job and this government wouldn't be doing its job if we ran away from the things that are really going to matter to the living standards of the people we represent.
By chance, both of the German politicians you're meeting here are tipped to one day lead their party. Now, your boss, of course, says that you're also a contender to take over from him. You don't deny that, do you?
Well, look, I'm, as you can see, very focused on this job, which is delivering the best possible deal for Britain, the best possible economic plan for Britain, and getting all those decisions right.
But you don't deny that, do you? You're not denying it.
What I say is I'm 100% focused on the job in hand.
But you're not denying it. What's wrong with being ambitious?
I'm ambitious for Britain. You know, if you look at my job, you know, in the next couple of weeks, I've got to deliver a spending review so that Britain has investment in our great public services like the NHS. I've got to make sure, you know, we work with Germany on the best possible deal for the European Union. I've got to make sure with my colleagues we have the right national security strategy for our country. You know, that's what I'm focused on. That is a huge task. I'm extremely honoured that, you know, I've been asked to undertake it, but it's all-consuming.
Briefly, I need to ask about Syria, if I may, Chancellor. There have been reports that Number 10 has dropped plans for holding a vote on potential airstrikes in Syria. have the government's efforts to build a consensus for strikes in Syria come to an end?
Well, look, I've seen these stories today, and the truth is nothing has changed, and there has been no decision in Downing Street as has been reported. Our position is very clear. We take the fight to ISIS wherever we can. British pilots are doing that in the skies above Iraq. If we were to do that in the skies above Syria, we need a vote in the House of Commons. But we're not going to go to the House of Commons unless we would be clear that we would win that vote and there would be a consensus for that action. And at the moment, it's not clear that there is a majority for it. So, as I say, we continue to make the argument, and when the time comes, we'll put the vote to the people in the House of Commons.
But have efforts to persuade Labour MPs to back it come to an end for now?
No, we're in a conversation, both public and private, with people about the need to take the fight to ISIS. That includes potentially action over the skies of Syria. But we're not going to go to the House of Commons and recommend action in Syria unless we're absolutely clear that the House of Commons will support us, and that conversation continues to be had.